Welcome to the Vision Profiles podcast. Join us, three Apple Vision Pro users, as we dive into everything from hardware and software to apps and the latest updates in the world of Apple Vision Pro. I'm Marty Gensius, a faculty member at Kent State University, podcaster and Apple product fan.
And I'm Eric Bolden. I work in IT, but my interest is in finding interesting ways to share content. Currently, photography of plants, birds, and panoramic sequences.
And I'm Daniel Burkholder, a software engineer and technologist currently immersed in generative AI and AR and VR technologies.
Well, today we're going to cover, naturally, Apple Vision Pro news and then share some apps. But you can always follow the stream on youtube.com/@visionprofiles, generally on Monday nights. We're doing this on Sunday nights because the last 2 Mondays have been crazy. We'll get back to the regular Monday night. And actually, we got an interesting Monday night the next week when we're doing the show. But Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or you can catch the video later or the podcasts anytime with the podcatching service that you have. Usually we try to talk about things that have occurred with us this week before we get into the news. And I've checked around and it doesn't seem like there's anything, we haven't any trouble with our Vision Pro headsets. We haven't run into anything terribly interesting or disturbing. We've gotten, I guess, no tech support this week because we've had problems with that in the past. So there's really nothing to share on a personal level. My Vision Pro headset has been sitting in a stand for most of the week because I've been busy organizing, and it's Christmas time, so we're doing lots of things to get ready for different dinners and things like that. And so, there's just not a lot to say on that side. Anything from you, Daniel or Eric?
Not really for me. I did manage to make a recording of that weird static noise that I had mentioned in the last episode. I needed to do another take of it, but I was at least able to essentially scientifically confirm that I'm not completely crazy. I can record it, and you got to crank it to the volume to hear it, but you can reproduce it and hear it. So I'll share a video when I have like a better recording of it. But it's definitely there. So I hope after Christmas, after the holidays, I'll go back to Genius Bar and just see if I can just get them to do an audio pod swap for me. But I can't wait to go in there with a video of a recording of a very faint static sound, and I'm sure that will be a first for a lot of them in that store.
And they'll probably go, well, it's your recording device that probably is creating the static.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you have better luck with that. I suggested, I think last week, maybe what you need to do is go to a different Genius Bar because they might have a different take on it than what it is. Eric, anything remarkable to talk about with you in terms of experiences this week?
The biggest is I had a second battery failure.
Oh, really?
Vision Pro. No idea why. So I'm glad I had a spare battery. Otherwise, I would have been without a device. So I'm not sure what's causing it. I might try switching to a different charger to see if there's a bad charging thing, or maybe there's something else with it that's causing it to charge the battery funny.
And will you go back to the Genius Bar with it to see if you can get it fixed in their end?
Probably, because then they can open up that same case again. But the symptom I got was it hit a point where if at some point I took the Apple Vision Pro off temporarily to go get more coffee or whatever, it would then just start rebooting and rebooting and rebooting and rebooting. And then I'd put it back on again, and it would be fine. Take it off, and it would just start rebooting. So then I'd just shut it down, power it back up again. And then if I plugged it into a charger, it would hit maximum charge and just beep and just go beep, 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 beep. And So, unplugged it, used it for a while, plugged it back in, it would hit its full charge, start beeping. And if I took it off for any reason, then it would start rebooting. But the new battery's not doing that. I don't know if it was the new battery, the new cable, or the new charger I'm using.
Huh.
No idea. But the last time they didn't replace the cable, they just replaced the battery.
I keep telling myself every night, okay, I'm going to set aside the last couple hours and put my headset on and watch a movie or something like that. And it's just, I'm too exhausted by the end of the day with everything going on in the holiday. So, and then tonight, my next 2 hours after the show will be producing the show. So I'll be working on it. And it's like, no, I'm not going to stay up super late just to put my headset on. So we'll see what happens. So what's new with Vision Pro? VisionOS, since our last show, VisionOS 2.3. I guess you'd say 0.1 developer beta has been released. The remarkable thing about it is if you look at the developer beta notes, there's absolutely nothing in the developer beta notes. And we have the link in the show, so you can go to the documentation. And so I started doing some research and did some, large language model searching. And it did come back with some content that said this is what people are talking about with the 2.3.1 developer beta. And particularly, there's some enhanced hand tracking that developers have noticed. And supposedly that's a thing that they're really excited about with this 2.3.1. And then expanded API functionality. The update introduces new APIs that provide developers with greater control over spatial audio and haptic feedback, enabling more immersive application experiences. Those were the top two things. And actually, looking at the rest of what came back, that were the two things that people were really excited about it. There's some improved simulator performances and some bug fixes and stability enhancements. Any of this surprising or earth-shattering, guys?
I haven't put it on mine. I'm going to wait, mostly because I'm fighting with that headphone or the audio pod issue. And they've made comments about being on betas in the past, and since there's nothing significant yet, I'm just going to wait.
Yeah. Eric, are you off betas now?
Yep. I finally got off of beta. I mean, if I can avoid being in a beta just because I'm using the Apple Vision Pro for actual work stuff and I don't want it to fail, and I'm getting ready to go in to complain about the battery. So I figured not being on a beta will help my pleading.
Yeah, so Eric's being a good boy. He's not messing around. He doesn't want to get caught up in the trap. One of the articles that came out this week, and I will attempt to share it. So one of the stories following the beta coming out is a story that talks about how Apple is already working on VisionOS 3 and VisionOS 2.4. This article came out since our last show, and the way someone discovered this, well, the article goes through the regular chatting about how it's an early adopter product. Do they talk about how much it costs? That's always the sign of someone. I don't think they talk about how much it costs in here. So at least they got away from the cost factor. But what it comes down to is some developer was deep in the code and saw that there were mentions of 2.4 and also 3.0 as part of the code with the headset. So, people having time to kind of go through that feed and finding all of that's pretty amazing. But I don't know if it means much now.
This just in, Apple's also making macOS 16.
Yeah. And this is and this kind of tells me this is a slow week because the next article we're going to talk about is the same sort of thing where this article in itself from Mac Observer is kind of a rehash of everything that we already knew. It's kind of a goulash of stuff. Apple's still in development phase of its AR glasses. They say in this article, 3 to 5 years away from getting the approach right to AR glasses. The project is codenamed Atlas and has internal studies where employees are giving feedback on existing smart glasses. But I like this part. This part was interestingly obvious. The fact that the delay in bringing Apple Glass to the market stems from these technical hurdles. Battery life optimization, that's the thing. How are you going to use a device you'll be able to use high powered with an extended time and not have it tethered to a battery or have it optimized for storage? I've got some Meta frames right now, the Ray-Ban frames, and it's doing cool stuff, but I can't imagine it doing any much more without burning through the battery pretty quickly. Miniaturization of powerful hardware, heat management, and I can't figure that out. Where's the heat in glasses? Display technology advancements and user experience refinement. All of these is like sort of a so what. Thank you, Mr. Obvious.
I like number 2. That really encompasses pretty much everything.
Yeah, right. It's sort of like Fantastic Voyage, that old movie where we're going to miniaturize you and put you in there.
Yeah, thank you, Chat Mac Observer GPT, for this list. But I'd like to see some nuance with respect to what people are thinking an Apple AR glasses would be, because your comment about heat management. If we're talking like Meta Orion level of AR glasses, yeah, we're going to be cooking. But there are some others. Like I'm thinking my next pair of glasses might be the Even Realities smart glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at them as basically like, it's about like Apple Watch level of like information, but in your glasses.
Yeah.
And like, that's cool. I'm sure that generates some heat, but nothing like a Orion would. So, it just kind of depends. And I would actually really love to see a Apple Watch on my face glasses from them, like the Even Realities.
Yeah. I mentioned this before. I have a set of Google Glass and really liked it. The functionality was just about that same sort of thing, watch on your face, Apple Watch on your face. You could get messages, you could get email, you could have it read to you if you wanted to, you could do time, weather, you could get directions. However, I never got to the point of being able to do that successfully. And you could shoot video, which creeped most people out. Which is why they were never universally adopted. And I thought that if we just got a good, solid base level of performance out of Google Glass or something like a Google Glass, I'd be happy. I don't need to do spreadsheets with my glasses. So who knows? Well, another article here about Apple looking at trying to create this is Mac Rumors, and they're saying that Apple is likely to make Vision Pro lineup more affordable in 2 ways. The first way is they're going to stop going to just Sony for their glasses, for their, not to glasses, for their, screens, basically. And they're looking at, and this came from a TrendForce article. We'll refer to this article later on, but Mac Rumors extrapolated this from TrendForce. The idea is that they're going to be spreading out their the people who provide them or potentially provide them with components, particularly with the screens, and looking at other ways of doing it for a less affordable model. And they're going to focus more on affordability and cost efficiency as a main priority. The display options for the model could be glass-based OLED displays and LCDs with LPTO backplane technology, both of which offer a balance between performance and cost. And then there's this conflicting piece at the end of the article where they talk about Apple analyst Ming-Chi Kuo said that the next Vision Pro will actually launch in 2025 with an M5 chip. I don't get that. How and why they would put an M5 chip in it in the next year. And then they went ahead and pushed back plans for the cheaper models until 2027. So any reaction to that, guys?
I'm sure they're at least testing that, and if it takes them that long to get it out the door and there is an M5 chip available, maybe it's an M4 plus some stuff and they're calling it, who knows?
Have they been on a yearly cadence with all the new Apple Silicon? I think so.
Well, there was a big jump. There was a much faster than usual jump to get to the M4 because it was cheaper. I don't see that same reasoning following for the M5. That would go kind of as needed. We haven't even finished filling out the M4s. I don't think there's an M4 Ultra out anywhere yet, if there's going to be one.
And there's no M4 in the MacBook Air yet, which that's what I'm waiting for to do an upgrade.
Yeah, but that'll probably be January, February. That's looking pretty likely.
Yeah, well, along those same lines, this is a 9 to 5 Mac article where they're referring to the TrendForce article, and I think this is much more of a positivist way of looking at it. That Apple is situating itself for a two-tiered market. You have the Vision Pro market, and then you have the Vision market. And none of the other devices are effectively doing that. They go in to talk about the $6,500 Varjo XR3 and how it is attached to, tethered to high-powered computers, and it's really meant for enterprise or business purposes. It's not, and has never been marketed as a consumer item. So you've got Vision Pro at the top of the line with that in terms of consumer items. And it talks about how the launch of the Vision Pro has shifted VR and MR devices beyond traditional focus of consumer-oriented entertainment to more productivity. And there really is no other device that's doing or attempting to do productivity. Daniel, you might know of some, but not at the level that Apple is trying to do. So that's where they talk about a two-tiered market, maybe kind of dealing with high-end model will use the 3000 ppi resolution displays, and the lower version might include glass-based OLED LCDs and LPTOs, which we heard from the previous. They'll have to wait for a second Gen Vision Pro model. The more affordable non-Pro version may not arrive until 2028. Again, a kind of a spin on that in terms of what came out of the TrendForce article. So this was the article this week that everybody was jumping on to try and make predictions. And then I think this article again from TrendForce, Apple Vision Pro nowhere near Meta when it comes to sales. Yeah. Before we take a little bit more of a look into that, guys, do you have any reactions just to the title?
It's a different device.
Right, yeah.
So, yeah.
$3,500.
I was wondering if we took the $300 that it costs and divided into $3,500, you could get 11 plus some change metas with each purchase of a Vision Pro. And would that mean then if we times the 11 times what it was, then Vision Pro actually, the percentage of the market would be close to the same as the 73. And this is where I was trying to do the math on that just to try and make sense of it. But this is where the article kind of goes into. They talk about Sony. I thought this was interesting. They talked about Sony and Sony cutting back on their headsets they want to sell the displays, I guess, to Apple, but it doesn't seem like they've had a loss in market share. And I don't know if that's because Apple pulled them away, or Meta pulled them away. But Sony is less excited about this device. They don't give figures for Apple Vision Pro because, Apple doesn't talk about sales. However, I saw another article that has a pie chart that estimates Apple is around 5% of the sales with this.
If I recall, though, they may be only, in terms of units out in the world, it may only be that. But if I recall, in terms of revenues, which is kind of the typical Apple shtick, where they have less market share, but they get the most profits and revenues from everything they've sold. And I think they were ahead in that respect, even with how poor the sales were. I say in air quotes, sales that were always going to be artificially limited to around 500,000 if they all sold out. So it was never possible to even come close. Yeah.
So we're getting some chats, some comments by Flood Ready. I would prefer to have another Pro version that is a bit lighter and a bit faster, and perhaps have some sort of 5G connectivity. Then have a Vision Air, and we talked about that on a previous show about the 5G connectivity and Apple's rumor to be putting those modem chips into things like laptops in the future, and potentially also Vision Pro.
Yeah.
Yep. And Panos is saying that Vision Pro, due to its high price, is not ready for a consumer market. Apple learned a hard lesson and they lost $1.4 billion. I'm not sure where Panos got those figures in terms of losing $1.4 billion. They're in it for the long run. And he says he can't justify the price. And that's going to be that's always going to be a consumer's complaint. It's not a consumer device. It's early adopters. The new HTV Focus costs 2 times the price down and gives way more immersed user experiences. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that depends what you're in particular looking for. Like, I would agree that new Vive headset looks nice, but that's, in my opinion, it's for gaming.
Yeah.
And if that's what you're looking for, I mean, I'll be the first one to tell you to buy that instead. Fully agree, and I think it'll turn into the same kind of. It might, at least for me, where I buy Apple for everything else, and then I buy something else for gaming, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm on a Mac, and I do all my primary work on a Mac, and then I have the Xbox. I mean, my gaming PC over here on my side.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the problem with articles like this, and the problems that we've seen ever since the Vision Pro came out, is people are trying to compare them to other headsets. And Vision Pro is really one of the few that has productivity elements to it. In fact, a full operating system that does productivity. Meta's messing around with some stuff, but you're not seeing the full use of it as a productivity device. It's a gaming device. It's a good gaming device. I've got a Meta 3, I've got a Meta SE or whatever they call it. And use that for gaming on the times I want to do gaming. But productivity, and so you can't really compare sales figures because people are buying more refrigerators than they're buying washing machines. Those are two different. They serve two different purposes, all in all. Refrigerators are more expensive than washing machines, so you're going to make more money selling refrigerators, but you're going to have less units. I mean, it's weird to even make this kind of comparison. So yeah, this is an interesting article. Again, all the articles that we're talking about will be linked into the show notes of this episode, both on the podcast version of it and also on the video version on YouTube. So you can look for that. And what do we have coming up next? Oh, now we're getting into some fun stuff. I hope Eric will jump into this. And this might not be different than other headsets that provide immersive experiences. But there are about 3 or 4 articles that came out. Again, sort of a couple of them felt like end of the year summaries that talked about, Apple's doing some interesting stuff with immersion. Before the show, I spent, let me put it this way. Apple does things like, first of all, it gives me fear of heights in their immersion experiences. And it gives me fear of sharks and being eaten by sharks. And then it gives me fear of heights in balloons, I just can't figure. I'm afraid I'm going to look over if I was in one of those things and fall to my death.
How did you do Trapped Below the Ice, trying to escape?
Yeah, now it gives me Trapped Below the Ice. And I was...
At this rate, you're going to be stuck indoors. You're going to be too afraid to go anywhere.
Yeah, I know. But it's this new immersion thing. I wish is there anything fun that they've done immersion? I mean, the elephants were cool, but is there anything that doesn't tackle a phobia or attempt a phobia with their immersion? Parquet, they had us jumping on buildings, and missing roofs.
What about the basketball one? Showing parts of the sort of sampler of what would it be like if we put cameras in a stadium?
Yeah.
In 3 minutes
good.
or less.
Yeah. I'm still going to watch it and less likely be a participant.
Now, you've said it before, but I think it bears repeating. As you go through and look at each one of these videos, there are changes in the equipment used, and how close they get to the subject, and how they're doing cuts. So, they're getting better at figuring out how to film this stuff, which I think you have to do in smaller films. But I see it as very promising.
So, Eric, you put an article in, we'll get to that in a minute, the Sony lens, or the Canon lens, excuse me. And then the big news was the $30,000 Blackmagic Ursa Syn immersive camera system.
Yeah, that was really nice to see. That means they're seeing some good promise in actually, doing real videography, commercial.
And then I'm not a user of DaVinci Resolve. I have it. And, it's sort of like if I'm on break, maybe this is a time for me to, mess around with taking some video and trying to do some editing and teach myself DaVinci Resolve. I do most of my stuff in Premiere. I haven't transferred over to Final Cut Pro. But DaVinci Resolve is now set for 3D, which is pretty cool.
And of course, there's Final Cut.
Yeah. But I've mentioned this before. The nomenclature for what things happen in Final Cut just doesn't make sense to me as it does in Premiere. And having first learned audio editing with Audition and then picking up video editing, a lot of that is a crossover in terms of how that system works with Premiere. So I'm stuck on Adobe right now. Here is, again, another picture of the Blackmagic Ursa Syn immersive available to pre-order from Blackmagic Design. Do they say when the pre-orders are coming? Because I'm going to sit by my door waiting for deliveries will start in early 2025. So I will just have to wait.
It looks good.
Yeah.
I like the looks. I don't have the budget for it, but I really like the looks.
Yeah, I wonder if you could get it for 14 days and then return it.
Now, I will say one thing. The cost of the Vision Pro is pretty minimal compared to this.
Yeah. Okay. So 7 or 8 Vision Pros per Blackmagic. And then why don't you talk about this one? Because you know more about, you're more tuned into this.
This was interesting. This is the first review that I've looked at where they provide a video that you can download, and you can watch it on the Meta, or you can watch it on it. It's set up so the easiest to watch is to watch it on a Apple Vision Pro. You just download the video and then play it. And it's doing a comparison between the iPhone 16 Pro Max and the Canon's original dual lens on a Canon R5C, the video camera. And then they also have the new version of that lens that's designed to run on a Canon R7, I believe. And they're looking at the distance between the two lenses on each one of the different, each hardware they were testing, and how close sort of the general guidance of how close are you to your subject when you're filming it, and what are the results, and is that correct? And with the Canon R7 with the new dual lens, you can be relatively close to the subject, which is evidently how a lot of things get shot, and still have all of the depth work out correctly. But it was neat. They were doing a bunch of stuff to kind of illustrate how do you find the immersive video or 3D video that isn't shot correctly, where if you close one eye and then close the other eye while you're watching it and see if things seem to jump around a lot, it's an indication that the distances and how everything is set up isn't quite right, which is really neat, because there was a game I was beta testing where they had something out of sync for when you were doing turning, and if you close one eye, you could actually see it failing. They also covered some things where if you're watching the video and you get somebody who has hand movement that's going back and forth on the camera, where you get a bunch of stuttering, they're filming it with one set of cameras, you don't have that. Another set of cameras, you do have that. So there's a lot of technique. So this is the first video I have come across where it was, if you want to produce video for somebody or for yourself for distribution, what do you have to do to have it look good, and with examples.
So the Canon, are you saying the Canon would probably be the preferred camera if you were going to do a lot of close-ups?
So for most people, the iPhone 16 Pro works just fine.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get quite as much depth. The edges are a little bit different. It's not as prominent. You can't go quite as close to your subject for just grabbing some quick footage. If you're trying to do it commercially or somewhat semi-professionally, then the Canon lens, there's better separation on the lenses, and the distance to the subject, if you're trying to do something close, like you're setting everything up in models on a table or something, the look of it was better. But they definitely went into it's not for everyone. There's no need to rush out and get this other hardware. There's no need to rush out and spend, what was that other one, $30,000-$40,000?
Yeah, the Black Magic.
Because not everyone actually needs it. But where I found it was interesting is in going through the different lenses and how close you were to the subject. It's also an indication that when you're filming stuff with your Apple Vision Pro or with your iPhone, distance to the subject matters a lot.
So
the other thing they covered is differences, like if you try to film something in dim lighting, it's not nearly as successful as if it's really, really, really bright light. And just in watching examples, that seems to be true as well.
So I'm going to shoot some questions at you and see if you can just take a shot at what you think. I don't know, but like I would think the Alicia Keys video and the Concert for One, those had a lot of extreme sort of close up. So what cameras do you think were used for those? Or do you know? I don't know if they talked about it.
I can't remember what he said, but he actually covered that. And he said one of the reasons why those were shot where they appeared to be extremely close had to do with the hardware they were shooting it with to get the depth to all come out correctly.
Yeah, it was frighteningly close, particularly with that
So-
concert for one.
Did you
we
try
also-
going back and watching that concert where it wasn't fully immersive, where it was in a window and you
No.
pushed the window
I
away?
haven't. No, I haven't, but I'll do that.
That's worth looking at.
Yeah. And so we know Submerged, when Submerged was done and that video came out, then it was followed by here's the camera that we used. So Black Magic, are there any videos that you think is using the Black Magic system that have
I'm
come
sure
out
there are
that
some
would work?
out there. I don't know which ones. I think it will be used a lot going forward. One of the issues was, how do you get an immersive effect where it really looks immersive? You very much can see the depth without having the I'm just too close to the subject.
Yeah.
And I mean, they could explain why and why you filmed it that way, but there hasn't been enough time for people to practice, because there are moments where you want that. There are other moments where you really don't need that extra depth.
Yeah.
But there's sort of an expectation when people are watching, immersive or 3D movies, that there will be lots of depth.
Yeah. Some of them were just too creepy for me. I mean, I appreciate it. And the elephants weren't one of them, but concert for one was just too much for me in terms of closeness. And yeah, I thought it was a little over the top with that. So I'll go back and look at it with the non-immersive.
Yeah. But if you had backed it away a little bit and it had been really flat, then it would have been, well, how is that immersive?
Yeah, well, I wish she would have backed up a little bit, which still would have gotten the immersive sense.
Now, do you remember the music video, the one in the ambulance?
Oh yeah, The Weeknd.
So they said compare The Weeknd to the one you were just talking about being too close.
Yeah.
Both of those were filmed with hardware that did well close to the subject. I kind of agree with you. One was too close, but evidently the styles and the techniques were similar between those two, according to this video.
Yeah.
And I have to say, it's not like I'm a videographer. So
yeah, Daniel, you have any reaction to this, or is this make your eyes glaze over?
Well, I was actually saving it a point to make with respect to the new the ice swimming one.
Okay, well that's next on the list. So tell us, what was the point you were going to make, Daniel?
Well, it was a good video, but there was some parts of it where I thought were like really sharp, almost unnaturally sharp. And there was, Eric, I don't know if you noticed this, but there was some of those like close-ups, and I wouldn't call them close-ups. They were like, sitting like a reasonable distance, like having conversation away from the person. They weren't that far away, but they seemed so close, so in focus. And I felt like I could see depth of field in a way that my eyes don't naturally do, like a camera does. And that made, that really was weird. It's like I have camera eyes for a minute there. And like, I mean, do our actual eyes have some kind of depth of field? Yes, but is it sharp and like a bokeh like you get on like a real big lens? Like that's kind of the effect I was getting. And I'm like, my eyes don't naturally do that. This is a little weird. It's like hyper real. Yeah.
So one of the things that other video discussed is to watch for cases where there's eye strain. And they said the eye strain comes from the subject being so close that your eyes are actually crossing slightly to bring everything into focus correctly. So if you're used to looking at a lot of 3D stuff, it won't necessarily fully bother you, but there still is more strain on your eyes getting it to work. And if you can back away a little bit or switch to different hardware, that changes how that works. So I don't know if that was the case.
I'm with
I'm going to have to
Gurn.
go back and watch the video again.
I know what you're talking about, Daniel. There were times during the ice dive video, like when the two guys are sitting talking about the experience, that it almost feels like an HDR video. It's like extremely crisp and clear versus other times, particularly the exterior shots where, and you know, you're out in an environment that's pretty hostile, so you can't just, versus sitting in a restaurant or a bar having a conversation in an area that's well lit. So yeah, I noticed the difference in that it felt like I was watching two different shot with two different kinds of cameras or settings. And it might have been, but Gurn in the chat room says, hey, listen, I don't want to see people's pores. I don't want to have to count people's pores. And that was true for the weekend, and it was true in this video too with Ice Dive. The concert for one, it was like she was just short of me being able to smell her sweat, which I didn't. That was not a pleasant thought or idea. Just a little too much. I think there's ways of showing depth of focus. Now, I didn't smell the manure with the elephants for some reason, but I was concerned about it with not manure, but with the concert for one, that it was just a little too much. So yeah, we have a couple of links for folks that you can get a little bit of idea what the video is about. And I guess there's parts of it posted on YouTube. So you're not going to get the immersive experience on a flat screen like YouTube. But this new one about the ice dive is an interesting story. Kind of long, in my opinion, for the whole story. It's like 14 minutes long, longer than some of the other ones that they have. Almost as long as the concert for one.
I enjoyed it though, and for all the times where it's been, well, that was just way too short.
Yeah.
You know, and I enjoyed the ability to kind of watch different types of filming. You know, the initial kind of background discussion for the safety guy, and then meeting the swimmer, and so.
I felt like the video quality out of this one was probably one of the best, though.
With the ice dive?
Just in terms of raw video quality, I thought it was one of the better ones.
Gurn is talking about liking the Rhino video, that there were times where they got close, but not too close, that you had the experience of that kind of immersion. So we're going to shift gears for just this one article. We've got this one article, and then we'll get into some apps that we've looked at. And this article is about Apple Vision Pro is driving VR use from games to healthcare and productivity. Sort of the point that we talked about, or that I mentioned earlier, that these are two different devices, and nobody else is talking about their productivity that is being generated from their devices. Of course, they started out with, despite low sales, Apple Vision Pro is reportedly shaking up the VR MR industry. Again, this is an article that is kind of a collection of ideas that we've heard about all year long. They have a new report by TrendForce. They make reference to that. They say they claim 5% of the 5% of the market in this article. Meta with 73% of the market, and with the Quest coming in, Quest 3S. I keep calling it the SE, coming in at $299. And here's the chart where it talks about and shows that others are at 13%. Apple Vision Pro is at 5%. Sony PSVR 2 is at 9%, and MetaQuest, and I guess that would be all levels of the Quest, is at 73%. But comparing, comparing a gaming device to a productivity / gaming device just doesn't seem to fit. And they talk about successors, real world usage. This is where they get into some of the articles that we talked about earlier in the year as they came out with it being used as a support for various medical and surgery types thing. The Center for Future of Surgery in UC San Diego, we covered that article. And then in Brazil, there was a doctor who used it for shoulder arthroscopy to access patient exams in 3D models in real time to enhance the surgical precision they were doing. $3,500. It's more affordable than traditional surgical monitors, which can cost up to $30,000. Like this quote here. So $3,500 for a headset is like a budget dust in the healthcare setting. So there goes there's an article that's kind of a blend of ideas, but it's making the unique statement of what the Apple product is that's different from other products. Reactions, or you satisfied with this?
I think there'll be more of it too. I mean, there definitely is an audience of users who don't think $3,500 is, it's does the device work or does it not work? Does it let them do something or not? The money isn't part of the problem, and the development that gets done for the devices there will pay dividends later on for other uses, once there are more headsets from Apple out there. So I think it's good. The more uses, the better.
And while there are, Meta has the biggest in terms of units deployed, I'm not seeing, has there been, I like a lot of even attempts to use it for anything but gaming. And I'm even actually, I have a video I should link in the show notes. Just like even for me, for example, just, the other day using it to go in AR on mock a bracket in my car's engine bay. I can't do that on a Meta. I can't do that with any of the other ones. That's awesome. So I 3D scanned that whole area, drew it in CAD, then brought it into the real world, and then put it there. I'm like, let me see, does it actually fit? And it actually fits. And I mean, it's not perfect yet, but it still gives me a better idea how it's gonna sit there, and how it if it's gonna crash into anything. And even though I took the 3D scan, you still never know. So I'm happy that people are, because I think in many respects a lot of people have fantasized about this kind of technology, right? I mean, look at any other sci-fi movie in the world, right? Holograms and this and that and jazz. But it seems like only now people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to actually try to make applications and implement some of these things. And I mean, you can even see that on the Meta side. This last year, it's many respects has been Meta implementing almost all the trying to implement all the productivity features of the Vision Pro.
Yeah, I don't know if they've gotten that far with it. I mean, the only thing that I don't know. I haven't attempted to look for productivity elements in Meta, and you might be more familiar with them than I am. Yeah, I think there is a scheduling system or sort of a personal assistant system called Mondays. Is it? And that was an app I heard that they were developing for use in the Meta. But if that's all you got, there's not, you can schedule, or you can look at your schedule and then continue to play Beat Saber. But doing anything with it would be another story. So we've been for about an hour now. So I want to get into the apps, and we've got 3 apps to look at. One I put up, and I can only guess the other 2 might have been put up by Eric. And so which one of you guys put up Guest Gallery?
I might have texted that to you.
Oh, yeah. I was getting text messages from you on things, and I'm like, okay, this is an app.
So the idea behind Guest Gallery is that you can add a bunch of selected apps for spatial videos, panoramic images, things that you want to use in a demo, so that you don't need to open up your entire photography library, your entire photos library to a guest so that they can see stuff easily. So, it was interesting because it's an app designed to let somebody try out your Vision Pro headset without dealing with, the issues of too much stuff.
Yeah,
that's
So it's sort of
when
appealing to, I could kind of gather together some sample pictures, have it all ready to go, and then if I ever need to demo it, just go there.
And then when you turn on guest mode, you won't let them go to the Photos app. You'll let them go to the Guest Gallery app.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I've loaded it. I haven't tested it with a guest yet.
I haven't tested it with a guest yet, but I did load it and about an hour or two before the show, and was able to pull my panorama videos in. You can lock them, or panorama shots. You can lock them, and so guests can't mess around with them in that sense. And it will lock them out of any other of your gallery. It does what you say it does, Eric. I thought it had more of a, because it said siloed sharing. I thought it had more of an actual sharing capacity where I could send you my gallery and you could link to it and look at my stuff that way. But that doesn't appear to be the case. The cost, it's free, and I think with free you probably get 6 or 8 sort of tiles where you can put video in. From what I could tell, or you could put the panoramic stuff in. But for $5 more, you can put as many as you want. That's what the upgrade is, and it's only $5. So the full unlock is, it gives you the capability to put more stuff in it than the limited amount that they have in the free version of it. So that is Guest Gallery siloed sharing. We will have that as part of the links for the show. And then you also put this in I think it was a text message to me.
Yeah, and I've only had a little bit of time to play with this one, but the interface was pretty decent. You can get all the planets in our solar system. It's easy to zoom in. Yeah, it's nice and smooth to kind of rotate things around. It was pleasant to use. I didn't get much further than that, but it's certainly worth taking a peek.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I can't remember what the price was for. But again, it was $5. So I went ahead and threw that in the mix in terms of what you can do with that. What you get for $5. Interesting. When I tested it out, I tested it in a room where there wasn't a lot of lighting, because I was also getting problems. And it's like I should have just turned the overhead lights on. But it was an interesting enough app that I could pull up, and it was like I've got to use my hand gestures to try and get as close to Saturn as I can, and then I can click on Saturn and the thing fills up the whole screen and with information on it. So kind of an interesting app with that purpose. It has an iPad and an iPhone version of it, but that doesn't have the dimensional stuff that you get from it with the 3D experience in Vision Pro. And I mentioned this app last week. We didn't talk about it, but this is Oto's Planet, and it's again only available on the Vision Pro, $7.99. And it's a story and a game kind of. It's an interactive VR tale. And what I like about it is you can see right there in this middle shot, that is Odo's planet. And you can use your hand gestures to spin it around. I don't know if you can clearly see that, but he's sitting in front of a campfire. He has an animal that's a cross between a dog and I forget what it was, but an interesting pet. And the storyline essentially is a spacecraft lands on his planet, and then it's the interaction between the spaceman and him in terms of, this is my planet. I was perfectly happy living here by myself with my dog and my campfire, eating fruit off the tree. And so I won't delve any further into it, but there's some cool stuff that happens with it. And it really feels, you can see this from the first image, it feels like claymation. It has that dimensionality of you're working with some claymated type of folk. So for $7, $8, I think it's well worth it. So those are the ones that we have for this week. Anything else, folks?
There's that colossal cave. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead. I thought you were going to talk about the app updates.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about that. What is it called now?
Cine Ultra.
Totally. Yes. Cinema Ultra pushed out an update 2 days ago. Just kind of polished things up. They added an immersive theater environment. The seat textures, the material, nice and clear, easy to see, clean, no popcorn. I kind of like the new theater. The text they have kind of floating just above the surface of the screen, it was well done. This is an app, they want you to pay for it. Can't remember what the price is. A little bit pricey, like $40 for a year, or there's a monthly. So you could pay for a month of it and try it and see if it's worthwhile. If it's worthwhile, decide whether you want to do an annual subscription and keep supporting them, or do a lifetime one-off $50 thing. There's a lot of chatting about it. Why would I want to pay $50 for something? Or I don't want a subscription model, but having enough money to actually continue working on a product, I think is still worth it. And the quality on it was pretty decent.
Yeah, I would say, when I look at the pricing, you've got annual for $19.99, and then you have monthly for $5. There's part of me that would go, in a month, I'll forget that I have the app and I won't get enough use out of it. So I might as well pay the $20, have it for a year, not have to think about it, but then see what kind of use I use over a longer period of time. And if it becomes a go-to app, then I can think of ways in which I can do more with it.
That makes sense.
That's my logic with it. I think I might own this already, but I'll have to take a look at it. I don't get the thrill out of sitting in fake theaters watching movies on my headset that other folks do. I kind of like just popping it floating in the middle of my living room.
Yeah.
Daniel, do you have any preferences?
In terms of where I like to watch a movie in VR? I guess we call it VR. Oh man, when was even the last time I watched a movie? I don't even know last time I watched a movie in that. I'm not a very big movie person, to be fair. So,
okay.
I don't know. I kind of like them in the what's it called? The immersive Mount Hood, and having it floating above the lake.
Yeah, the little reflection.
You can see the reflection, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That reminds me that would never actually happen in real life. I'd rather be in a fake theater than having a movie floating above a lake. It's just too distracting for me from the movie. I'd rather have it like a floating screen in my living room.
Oh, come on. You don't want to do like a real life version of that, perhaps, where it's like a giant, like inflatable projector screen just out in the middle of a lake?
No. No. I wouldn't want to do it at the beach either,
The beach is nice, especially early evening. That's I kind of like that because then it sort of implies I actually have time to watch the movie.
Yeah.
So do either of you have any opinions on the real-time converting of video to 3D? Have you taken any just regular videos and then brought them up to watch the 3D version of them?
No, I haven't. What would you use to do that?
Well, I brought it up because the thing we're just the Sign Ultra that will do it. Moon Player will also do it.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a few of them actually that'll do it. The things I've tried it on, I would say that was certainly an effect. I don't know if I would prefer it or want to watch it. It was more of a novelty. And I think, excuse me, that just comes down to it wasn't intended to be that way. So just things weren't shot well, that it lends itself well to being converted. So I don't know. It's just strange. I'm sure we'll see it get better over time, because that actually would be a good application of generative AI to to better do that in real time, but also doing that in real time at that level. Whoa, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I did a horse pull, and that worked out really well. So you got the team of horses with that depth and the rectangular thing that we're pulling and where the people were. So that was interesting.
That sounds like a real Wisconsin thing, Eric. Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, we would go to horse pulling contests at the county fair in Wisconsin. Yeah, I get it. I get why you actually have video of that.
Get the dust from the track kind of drifting across.
Gern in the chat room said, I love fake theaters. I bought Skybox, Moon Player, and Screenlit just to see fake theaters. But that's just me. I've tried Plex Movie in Screenlit. It does it. And then not bad. And then, the conversion piece, I think his comment was, it's not bad if you dial down the effect. If you try to do too much effect, you get too weird stuff. So that might be our final message to folks. Just not bad if you dial down the effect. Probably applies to a lot of things. You can follow us on the stream on youtube.com/@visionprofiles, generally on Monday nights. We'll be back next Monday at 9 Eastern time, or catch the video later on YouTube or the audio on any podcatcher service. Want to thank Eric and Daniel for being with us tonight and shifting the nights for us to be able to do this and get a show out, so we have a weekly episode for you, and we continue to have weekly episodes for you. Thank you for tuning in. We'd love to hear from our listeners. The chat room is great. We've had Gern, we've had Panos, we've had Flood Ready in making comments, and it's always great to see that community happen. Whoever you are and whatever fake names you're using to watch movies in fake theaters. But thanks for joining us with this episode. But if you have ideas or want to join us, we'll even take you on as a guest if you'd like to be on as a guest. But you can get a hold of us through visionprofilespodcast@gmail.com. You can find all of this podcast connections and other podcasts and videocasts that we do at thepodtalk.net. Our bumper music is Free Jazzy by Steve Combs, courtesy of the Free Music Archive. Learn more about us and the Vision Pro podcast, as I said, at thepodtalk.net. Spread the word to visionaries. Thanks for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time.